Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Clouds and very nice to meet you. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about whether or not you should do a master's. As many of you guys know, I did a master's in management at London Business School, so I thought it would be good to share what the thought process behind that was and how I came to the decision to actually do a master's before I even decided where to do it and what to specialize in. If you guys are in a pickle, don't know whether or not you should do a master's, and want a second opinion or a little bit more information, then keep on watching. So I believe that there are a set of questions that you should be asking yourself before going into a master's program. One of those questions is whether or not the master's will help you get a job. This in itself is a loaded question which you'll have to dissect a little bit, but ask yourself, is my master's going to help me get a job? There's a couple of ways to find out whether the answer is yes or no. First of all, is a job that you want, assuming that you know what job you want, is this job something that needs a master's degree to apply for? Is it something that most companies will ask for a master's degree as a prerequisite? I know that a lot of jobs within research and STEM subjects require master's degrees just because you need to be a little bit more of an expert in a specific subject area. So check whether or not the industry that you want to join and the kind of job you want to do requires a master's degree. If the answer is no, it's not a prerequisite, then do you have a better chance of getting in with a master's degree? And this is something that was a little bit of why I chose to do a master's, because I wanted to get into consulting, and I know that consulting is a very competitive industry, and even though it is not a set criteria to have a master's degree, I knew that it would eventually help me out in my job search. So, you know, try to understand whether or not, yes, perhaps it's not prerequisite and perhaps it's not something that you must have, but it is something that will make it easier when you start applying to the job you want to do. The other way to look at it from a job search perspective is that there are a lot of industries and a lot of companies specifically that only hire from target schools. And even though you may not need a master's program to get into this company, you might need to have another university in your degree to get into this company. So if you're not currently in a target school, a master's program might be something that helps you get a job in the future. Specifically if it's a job within professional services like law, investment banking, consulting, these industries very often only hire from target schools. Now that we advance into, you know, diversity programs, I know that a lot of companies out there don't just hire from like a handful of universities because they understand the value of hiring from a diverse and a varied set of universities. However, there's still some companies out there like MBBs and specific strategy consultancy companies or certain investment banks that will only hire from like Oxbridge, best schools in the UK. So you have to make sure that if perhaps a master's degree is not something that's necessary, maybe switching to another university and using a master's degree as a vehicle to do so might be necessary, which again is another reason why I did a master's, because I knew that coming from Queen Mary, it's not a target school for a lot of consulting companies. I would have a pretty low chance in getting in, so that's another thing to ask when it comes to job search. Even though yes, not particularly fair, it's how it works, so it's a practical question that you need to ask yourself. Does the industry I want to go into only target specific schools? Or does the industry I want to go into require a master's degree? Or is it more likely that I'll get a job if I have a master's degree? If the answer to this is all no, like there are a lot of industries out there where this doesn't apply, then maybe a master's degree isn't something that you have to do. Now, moving away from the job search question, which is probably the biggest question that you want to ask yourself, the next question you should ask yourself is, do you want a break later on in your career? A lot of people don't do a master's straight after their bachelor's degree because they see a future where they perhaps will want to take a break out of their career, and a master's is a perfect excuse to do so. And a lot of people that I know are, 2-3 years into their career, into their working life, they like it, but they kind of want to pivot to somewhere else, and they kind of want to see what else is out there. And that's a perfect segue into a master's, because you're just at a point in your life where you know what you want, but at the same time you might want to pivot. You know exactly where your skills lie, and you are looking for an excuse to just leave the workforce for a little bit. And in this situation, if you have already a master's, it's probably too expensive to do another one, or the opportunity cost of doing another master's is quite high because the value add wouldn't be as much because you would have done another master's already. So if you think that perhaps in the future you are likely to want a career break, then it might be smart for you to go straight into work and reconsider to do a master's later on in your life and in your journey. So yeah, ask yourself, do I want a career break, or am I certain that I want a career break in the future? If yes, maybe I want to do a master's later on. There's no rush to do it now. Bubble tea break. T4, my favorite bubble tea place in London, by the way. Obviously not sponsored. I wish I was sponsored by T4. But yeah, the third question that you should be asking yourself when deciding whether or not you want to do a master's: what is the value add, the real value add from a master's? Am I going to be learning something that I really don't have any expertise in right now? If you're doing some kind of science or some kind of technical degree, sometimes you literally need a master's to learn that extra depth in that subject because you just haven't learned everything during your bachelor's. And this applies to a lot of technical degrees, and it's also why a lot of people do PhDs, because master's programs just allows you to extend your knowledge just that much further. So you know, do you need that knowledge that only a master's can teach you? Or is it the case where you're looking at a master's but you're not sure if it's actually going to teach you that much, and you're actually not sure if you do learn, whether or not that knowledge is applicable to your life? And even if it's not applicable, is it interesting? Is it relevant? Is it something that you're passionate about? Ask yourself what the value add of the things that you're going to learn are. If the value add is very low, like yes, I'll learn about XYZ, but I could also learn about this myself easily on my free time, and this information is not really that relevant to my job or my job search or my personal interests, then you might want to reconsider. But if the value add of the information and the things you're going to learn is wide and it's deep, then it is something that's worth searching and worth pursuing. I think a lot of people assess whether or not they want to do a master's from a lot of different perspectives. A lot from the job search, which I've already talked about. And a lot of people really think about, okay, what about the learning? What about the development? That is really one of the main reasons why you should be doing a master's to begin with. That's the main reason why we're all in education to begin with, right? It's about the learning. So ask yourself if the learning is worthwhile, and if it is, then that's a good sign. I don't usually get matcha, I usually get rose, but they didn't have rose yesterday, so it's really good though. It's the Kyoto green tea latte. Another bubble tea break. Alright, the fourth and last question I think you guys should ask yourselves before doing a master's is, how are you going to finance it? This is a very, very practical question, and I'm sure that you guys probably would have thought of this already. But if you haven't, then think about it properly. How are you going to finance and how are you going to fund your degree? In the UK, every single undergraduate degree, well, before for EU students as well, but now not for EU students anymore, but undergraduate degree for at least UK students is priced at a fixed price of 9,200, and that's not the case for master's degrees. So master's degrees can go for a lot more expensive. So my master's degrees, I've already disclosed, was 32,000, which is very expensive, and I had to think about how I was going to fund this before I pursued my degree. So before you apply, or before you think about what you want to do and what school you want to go to, think about the cost of a master's and think about how you're going to cover that cost. There are definitely a lot of different ways that you can go about it. I personally used student finance funding. So student finance gives you loans that can cover a certain amount of your postgraduate's tuition. So definitely have a look at that, or any other organizations that provide loans. I also got a scholarship which allowed me to cover a third of my tuition. So look at different options. Look at how feasible those options are and how plausible those options are. For example, if you want to apply for a scholarship, think about realistically how likely you are to get it, because before you apply for master's, you need to know how you're going to cover it. It's important, and you have to be quite realistic about these things. How likely am I to get a loan? How much cash do I have at hand? Can my parents help me? Can anyone else help me? And along with cost is not only how you're going to cover it, but the money that you're going to put towards this tuition, is it going to be worth it? So you need to kind of do a cost-benefit analysis, and I'll probably do another video in my channel assessing whether or not my master's degree was worth it, because it was very, very expensive. But this is something that you guys have to do, and I know it's extremely difficult and challenging because you can't really put a number on learning. You can't really put a number on, okay, this is what my master's degree is worth, because it's very abstract, it's very subjective, and it's why universities can charge that much, because you really don't have a quantitative way of defining how much worth or how much money you're going to get out of this degree. But nudge yourself to try to think of KPIs, or this is the consultant side of me coming out. Think about like key indicators that you can directly link to your degree and what numbers those indicators have. For example, oh, if I get a master's degree, I'm likely to make X percentage more on my salary in 5 years. That X percentage goes into like the worth of your degree. Think about all these other things that could perhaps increase your money in the future, and will cover the cost of your tuition. So try to do some kind of a cost benefit analysis, probably a very vague and flawed one, like a very crude way of thinking about this, but it's quite a good indicator as to whether or not you should be doing a master's. So yes, those are the 4 questions you should ask yourself when deciding on whether or not you want to do a master's. So it's whether or not you'll be more employable after this master's, whether or not this is the right time to take a master's, or whether or not you'd want a career break in the future, whether or not there's a value add from all the learning that you will be doing, and how you're going to fund this master's, and what the cost benefit analysis of the tuition is. So hopefully that helps and gives like a very brief and like general overview. Obviously specific masters and specific subjects, you know, ask for different kinds of advice, but this is kind of like a general video that you can refer to if you're very much in like the preliminary phases of your decision making. Hopefully it's useful, and let me know if you guys want some follow-up videos. I realize I always say that in my videos, like, oh, let me know if you want some follow-up videos, and I never make them, but I'm gonna try to, you know, be better at linking back videos to other videos I've made before. So I'm definitely gonna be talking a lot more about masters. I am thinking of making a pros and cons list of master degrees, so let me know if you want that. As always, please do not forget to give it a big like and subscribe, and leave any questions down below, and I will try my best to answer them. Now finish off my bubble tea, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.